Special Prosecutor Aisha Ibrahim has directed the prosecution of 3 former top officials of the Northern Development Authority and a businessman for inflating a consultancy contract by 4.6 million cedis. This is the outcome of his probe into the activities of the Northern Development Authority following allegations by former CEO Dr. Alhassan Anamzoya, who detected the anomaly with the transaction. You will hear from his lawyer, Martin Pebo, who petitioned the OSP shortly. But first, my colleague Kojo Brace joins me with highlights of the OSP's report on the investigations. Kojo, first run us through the individuals who have been indicted in this report.
Abdul Rahman, who was the CEO of the authority, Stephen Engman, who is Deputy CEO, Patrick Sado, also a Deputy CEO, and the businessman Andrew Kinjari, who is Chief Executive of A&QS Consulting Limited. They have already been slapped with charges including conspiracy to directly or indirectly influence procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage, and they are to be arraigned on January 31.
Tell us also about the contract itself that led to the probe, Kojo.
So it was a contract awarded to A&QS for consultancy services for the supervision of projects in some constituencies as part of the IPED project. Now, the contract was worth some 5.2 million cedis. The complaint to the special prosecutor was that this sum had been increased to 10.4 million cedis through the removal of the page in the initial contract containing the contract sum and the insertion of a replacement page. They add that this 10.4 million cedis that they bloated the contract was without approval of the Public Procurement Authority, and that's why the complainant wanted the special prosecutor to investigate.
So, what did the special prosecutor find, Kojo?
So the SP found that the actual executed contract was worth 5.7 million cedis. He again says the new figure of 10.4 superimposed on the contract had no basis, and that the named officials pushed through and approved this amount without recourse to due process.
Right, Kojo Brace is my colleague bringing us part of the highlight of the report of the Office of the Special Prosecutor on the Northern Development Authority. Well, Martin Pebo, who petitioned the OSP, says there are other officials at the presidency who should be charged as well.
Came back to now, another, how many? 4 months for the case to go to court. So it tells you that the special prosecutor needs help. Right now, as I'm talking, some lawyers are putting are signing a petition for us to go present to the president, calling upon him to resource the special prosecutor to give him the establishment budget. Yes, so there's a petition that lawyers are signing because we need to fund the special prosecutor to make him more efficient and more effective. Otherwise, look, the people looting, they are continuously looting. Oh. As we are talking now, they are looting. Tomorrow they will loot. It goes on and on and on. So we need to fund the special prosecutor quickly so that he can clamp down more of such schemes, because there are a lot in the system. There are a lot, and they keep on doing this things daily. There's a lady at the office of the president called Clara Napagatia. Yes. So that lady, she's like now de facto minister. She approved the payment too. So I was hoping that she was also going to be charged, because as the boss, at a minimum, you can't say if subordinates bring you anything, you just approve. Did she check to see whether there was a contract, there was authorization for such payment? Why did she approve? So Clara Napagatia at the office of the president, the coordinator of the Special Development Initiative, I think she should have been charged as well. Then the budget officer, the director of budget, all the people who approved it. Because it means that minimum, if we cannot prove that they were intentionally involved, then it means they were being negligent. Because, you see, we don't have much money. Somebody brings you a PV in millions of Ghana cedis to approve, and you just approve. You don't ask for the document. That's assuming you are not involved. You didn't know. But before you append your signature, don't you ask for? If it were your personal money, wouldn't you check before you approve?
Yeah, the Martin Kwebo, he petitioned the OSP for the investigations. Now, joining me for more is anti-corruption campaigner Vitus Azim. I'm grateful for your time, sir. What's your preliminary observations of the outcome of the OSP's investigations into the matter?
Well, when any allegation like this come up, we always call on the authorities to expedite investigations into the matter. So I think it's a good development that the special prosecutor has been able to conduct this investigation in a reasonable period of time. If they get exonerated, then they are protected. But if they also are found guilty, then they go through the normal process of the law. And that's the only way we can go. It appears the matter is already in court, because I've seen a press release to that effect. So we cannot discuss the details, the content of the case. But at least it's a good development, because there have been complaints about the work of the special prosecutor. And so if something like this comes up, we can say that we're moving towards the right direction. At least either for the people to exonerate themselves or for the state to have its way.
Mr. Azim, let's look at the findings of the special prosecutor, that actual executed contract was worth 5.7 million, yet the new figure of 10.4 million was superimposed on the contract, and that, it says, had no basis, and that the named officials actually pushed through and approved this amount.
I think it's not actual executed project, but the contract sum was that 5.2 million that you quoted, because the initial amount contract was revised to reduce the number of constituencies that this contractor was supposed to supervise. So the contractor was aware that this was the new amount was 5.2 million, opposite 0.7 million, but kept on requesting for payments that exceeded that amount. And so that is what the auditor, the special prosecutor found out. And that's why he has found it necessary to ask that they be prosecuted for procurement breaches.
These mean to the country's fight against corruption, Mr. Vitus Azim?
Well, it has always been that if it takes appropriate action on serious allegations of corruption, you are likely to eliminate or reduce the chances of other people wanting to engage in such acts. So at least if these things come, not just one, not just two, but a number of them are happening, then it means that we are succeeding in the fight against corruption, or that at least we are going in the right direction.
Mr. Vitus Azim, I'm grateful for your time this afternoon. He is an anti-corruption campaigner and former executive director at the GII. Now, still on corruption and anti-graft matters, JoyNews is learning the National Cathedral Secretariat is set to commence processes to engage a private audit firm to undertake full-scale investigations into public funds used for the construction so far. This comes in the wake of a push by two members of the Board of Trustees, Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams and Reverend Eastwood Anama. They say construction should only resume when the current economic challenges are resolved and an audit into the use of public funds is carried out. This is contained in a resolution drafted by two men of God. The two have publicly declared their support for the project and say this move is not a departure but necessary due to the current circumstances. We'll be listening to my colleague, Joseph Akable, has been looking into the matters that has come up after these two clergymen are called for audits. Listen.
We understand that the Cathedral Secretariat, they have already decided to engage an internationally acclaimed auditing firm to undertake that audit, not because of this particular proposal that has come in, but they've also confirmed to us that they've indeed received that proposal. And in actual sense, there's a meeting that is going to take place later today, a very important meeting of the Board of Trustees. And one of the major issues that will be discussed will be the decision to engage the auditing firm. The other leg of the issue has to do with the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. You recall MP for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, sent a petition to Shraj regarding the identity, that is a member of the Secretariat having multiple identity, as well as claims that he breached the conflict of interest rules in how his company gave a loan. That's the story that we've been told, a loan to the Cathedral Secretariat, was subsequently paid back by the Cathedral Secretariat. And so Shraj has written to the Cathedral Secretariat asking for its comments on that matter. And so in responding to it, the Cathedral Secretariat holds the view that it also amounts to giving some indication or the processes that have been undertaken so far. So they consider that probe and the one that they intend to undertake by way of engaging audit firm to be parallel probes, which they believe will put the matter to rest for good.
Joseph Agable with highlights with a call for a probe or audit into the National Cathedral project. Well, former Auditor General Daniel Domelevo is urging Parliament to disallow government's use of public funds for the project without parliamentary approval. As you may recall, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta had told Parliament Ghana's contingency vault was relied upon to aid the construction. Mr. Domelevo says this is unlawful.
Let me say first and foremost that this is my opinion, and it is not an audit opinion. I have not gone into every detail of that case, but I find that expenditure or that transaction very, very unfortunate. At no point in time should we be using public funds to fund individual people's wish or desire. So if the president has a desire to put up a cathedral for God, he should go ahead and look for his money, but not to use public funds. But even if he has to use public funds, the Constitution has laid down procedure of using public funds, especially money from the Consolidated Fund. Article 178 provides that it must be in a budget or in a supplementary budget approved by Parliament, except if it is a charge on the appropriation by a law, that is the Constitution, or an act of Parliament. This was not done. Again, we were told that it was an emergency, as a result of which the Minister of Finance used the emergency, emergency vote in making that payment. At the same time, the same Minister of Finance requested that there should be money paid into the contingency fund. Read the Auditor General's report, it's there, that 1.2 million was paid into contingency fund, not the vote, and used for COVID, which is clearly an emergency, an unforeseeable expenditure. So if the cathedral was actually an unforeseeable expenditure which occurred, it should have been coming out of the contingency fund, not the vote. Why didn't it come from there? Because the contingency fund is under the supervision of the Finance Committee of Parliament. So there will be transparency and accountability there. So they went in for this black box called contingency vote and used that instead. Again, the Constitution provides that the minister, if he will not even use contingency fund, he must submit a supplementary budget to Parliament. There again, there will be accountability and transparency. To avoid this, the government decided to use contingency vote, which I must admittedly say has been in the books for several years. And it gives the ministers, the various ministers of finance, a leeway of putting money there and can use it anyhow. And I call on Parliament to disallow that expenditure line. They should cancel it. It is unlawful. The Constitution has provided medium for which the government should address contingencies or unexpected expenditures. There are two. One of them, utilizing the vote under the contingency fund, which must be replenished. Secondly, the minister can go to Parliament with supplementary budget. If they will not do this, then they should not allow them. If you look at the budget for 2023, you see that the amount is colossal. I didn't know you were going to ask me a question on it. I will have quoted it for you. But look at the projection for 2024 going. It's going to the tune, I think by 2026, it will be about 14 billion. And why do we have to create such a contingency where there is no transparency on it, there's no accountability for it, you only spend money? One day you hear that Daniel Domelevo has been built a house, and you ask, Minister, where did you get the approval from? He said he took it from contingency vote. It is a window for stealing, it is a window for wastage and must be stopped.
Edomilevu is former Auditor General. Bring you more on education as we celebrate World Day of Education. But this afternoon, JoyNews is learning that there is a change in minority leadership in Parliament. We are hearing that Ato Forson, former ranking member on the Finance, is now minority leader. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante joins us with more. Kweku, what has led to this critical change this afternoon?
So, Aisha, it is not clear what exactly might have prompted the NDC leadership to cause this major shift of change in the NDC front bench in Parliament. But it has been coming over the past few weeks. We've had talks of the NDC leadership having some conversation about changing the front bench of the party. Indeed, Muntaka Mubarak, the chief whip, had actually denied that. He had spoken to our colleagues in Kumasi. He had said that there was no such discussion going on. But just this morning and just this afternoon, the news coming in is that the entire front bench of the minority has witnessed some seismic changes. The minority leader, Haruna Idris, who only yesterday was on PM Express in that capacity, is no more the minority leader. His deputy, and then the minority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, has also been changed. But the first deputy whip, Ahmed Ibrahim, has been maintained. The second whip, Doyo Gans, has been maintained. As of now, Kesel Ato Forson, who, like you said, is the outgoing ranking member on the Finance Committee, is set to become the minority leader. The deputy is set to become Amma Kofi-Boa, who was a former energy minister under John Dramani Mahama. And the chief whip is expected to be governs Kwame Agboja. And so when Parliament resumes next week or two, these changes will take effect. And you were asking specifically what might have caused this. Indeed, there was some chatter in Parliament that the back bench of the party did not trust so much the front bench. There were some underhand dealings that they claimed were going on. Of course, no one has provided any evidence to that. And the statement put out by General Secretary Fifi Kwete did not specifically state the reasons. But these are some of the issues that have come up, matters of distrust, issues of the party giving specific instructions to the party, which they did not comply with in Parliament, have culminated in this decision to remove Haruna Idrisu, James Kluchi Abeji, and Muntaka Mubarak, who were the three leading members of the NDC in Parliament, from the front bench.
Interesting details there from Kweku Asante, but Evans Mensah, his head of political desk here at JoyNews, he's joined me in the studio. Evans, obviously, this team that has been changed has performed marvelously, if you ask me, and of course, especially when the House became almost equal, almost a hung parliament. What does this mean for the minority in Parliament?
I mean, as we speak, we're still learning a bit more, and my phone has just been ringing, trying to work our sources and get a bit more understanding of what is happening. Just before I got in here, I've been speaking to a very, very senior source in Parliament on the minority side, and they've given me a bit of clarity that apparently what is now transpiring has been something that has been simmering shortly after the national elections, to elect the chairman, the general secretary, and the others.
Right.
And the belief there is that it's only happening because, and they point a finger at John Sasiu Nketia, who's a national chairman
right now,
because he was not supported by the outgoing crop of leaders on the minority side.
But we heard from Parliament, from Ahmed Ibrahim, who said almost over 150.
And I'm happy that you mentioned that. In fact, that is always in this conversation I was having with the source. It is an incident that sort of then got Asiedu Nketia to decide that this is possibly what must happen if he wins. Because remember that in that conversation, and by the way, let's put it in context. The name you mentioned is one of the few individuals who have been maintained, right?
Yes,
in
as
the
deputy
current crop of leaders. He still maintains his position as deputy chief whip. But in that occasion, he goes to Asiedu Nketia's launch of his campaign and then pledges the entire support of the minority to Asiedu Nketia's cause. Swiftly thereafter, Haruna Idrisu issues a statement distancing the minority side from that particular pronouncement and categorically stating that it's not true that the minority side supports Aisha Ibrahim. And that was the first public manifestation that there may be a division in terms of the allegiances going into the campaign for the national executive positions.
Okay.
And it is, if one of the individuals I spoke to called what has happened a coup d'etat. He says what has happened is a coup d'etat, and that procedurally they're possibly going to challenge what has happened. Because the explanation that I was giving is, and remember, this is breaking, so a lot of people, everybody is trying to get information. The explanation I got is, in these circumstances, you do it with the consent of the minority caucus. So the regional caucuses will put names in an envelope, sealed envelope, and it's submitted, and that's how Haruna's team was elected. Okay,
but it does look like this hasn't gone through that process.
In fact, according to the source, this didn't happen. And then you also don't do it when the parliament is on recess, because of course you don't have everybody else, to consult them. And most importantly, the individuals who have been removed didn't know that they were going to be removed. In fact, they are hearing it when I made a call. Okay. They are hearing it from me that this has happened.
They've not been giving letters. They've not been
told that changes are happening. Party. So, and in fact, it's a reason why Muntaka Mubarak last week gave that interview and said categorically, it's not true, because he didn't know. But apparently this has been cooking for a while. Okay. It's just manifesting itself right now. So clearly from what has happened, we are going to see a situation once this is confirmed. And again, I was told that group of, the leaders who have been removed currently are advising themselves to be quiet until this is confirmed. We possibly go to see a challenge.
But let's look at the names that are coming up. Ato Forsen as minority leader. Amakufeboa as his deputy. Chief Whip governs Agboja.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, Dr. K.S. Ato Forsen, I must say, as the spokesperson for the minority on finance and the ranking, has been excellent in terms of the way he's led that his bit of the leadership
ranking
group.
Member of
he's been excellent. He's put a lot of pressure on the government. He's constantly out there taking on the government, of course. And if you look at the vote of censure, he was the leader of that. I mean, Haruna, of course, because he was leader, was sitting with him. But in terms of the work that was done, so I have no doubt he can do the job. The only question becomes the way this has happened. And as I've said, I have been told on authority from the senior leader that this is a coup d'etat. So if you have people in the party in that position with a huge constituency calling this a coup d'etat, then you can immediately begin to see what will happen if Ato Forsen is confirmed. Okay. Because remember, those crop of leaders also have their supporters, right, in parliament. So this is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, and I'm told that there's an official letter to this effect. So we'll be sharing that with you on what the NDC is saying with this change. But I'm more interested also in the personality. So you have it there. And just as you can see on your screens, it's a letter to the Honorable Speaker, Alban Bagmi. It says, notice of changes in the leadership of the NDC party in Parliament. National leadership of NDC wishes to formally bring to your notice the following changes the party has undertaken. Minority Leader Dr. K.S. Ato Forsen, Deputy Minority Leader Kofi Amaboa, Minority Whip Kwame Agboja, First Deputy Whip Ahmed Ibrahim, Second Deputy Whip Comfort Doyo Ganza. The new leadership will be charged to recommend consequential changes in the ranking membership to headquarters of the party for approval. And let's see who signed this letter. It's a Fifi Kwete, who is General Secretary. Let's look at Chief Whip Evans, and we know how Muntaka has held that position religiously, and we know how he's been able to whip the party in all instances.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday on PM Express, Aisha, there was a part of the interview where Haruna almost pauses and this appears to go on a tangent, talking about the criticism that he and the side gets in the House all the time for not doing much. And then he mounts a very vehement defense of his leadership. And then he says, for those who criticize me, if I haven't done anything at all, are ensured that we elected a leader. And that is such a big historical achievement because in the country, in Ghana, we haven't seen that before.
Seen that.
Where we have a party in opposition with a speaker, you know. But he points to that's one of the things. And if you're talking about, mentioning Muntaka Mubarak, I remember that fateful 6th to 7th January when we spent the night in Parliament. The role that Muntaka Mubarak played in ensuring that Alban Babing is elected as Speaker was fascinating. And I get to learn later in many interviews with him. And he goes into explaining in detail on PM Express how he did it, trying to consult the MPP side, see who is aggrieved, right? And to join them. And making them, you know, promises in exchange for their support. And they got somebody to vote for them. That is the only reason why Alban Babing was elected. But remember that post that, his relationship with Alban Babing hasn't been perfect. I mean, they've had cause to vehement disagree on the floor. I've asked him before. In the last interview I did with him, if you remember, he went all guns blazing at the Speaker of Parliament, calling him a tyrant, if you remember, right? And remember that the Speaker is an NDC stalwart, a founding member of the party.
He is.
Who is the letter addressed to? It is to him.
The Speaker.
I mean, you cannot help but reading between the lines here that there's a lot at play. And remember that Asiru Nketia is a member of the parliamentary service.
Yes, he
is,
yeah.
And there's a lot of people who say he got that position because Alban Babing wanted him there.
To be there.
Right? So you have this triangle of Alban Babing, loyal to Asiru Nketia, and then you have at the other side of it, Haruna and Muntaka Mubarak, who appear to be in conflict with the two I've mentioned. Then you have a perfect storm brewing, and no wonder this has been called the coup d'etat.
But let's put the party at the middle of this whole conversation. And of course, we know 2024 is just around the corner. These personalities we've mentioned, Agboja, I know he's a firebrand. Does he have that fire to be able to hold that position that Muntaka held? Remember when we had we've had a lot of instances where Muntaka he's had to even lift the ballot box and all that has been there.
Yeah, I remember the fight.
Does Agboja does he have that strength to take up that position?
Agboja does. I mean, and that's the thing about the minority, the crop of individuals, and one of the names that I possibly expected will be part of this, who possibly would have been Samokudu Tablakwa, right? I mean, but of course he's not there. But Agboja, from everything we've seen, and when you see him argue on the floor, he's very, very passionate. And I was privileged in 2016 to be in his constituency and hosting a ballot box program right in the midst of his village there. And you could see the passion and the respect he commanded from his followers. So I have no doubt that he can play the role. I mean, if the process I've been told is how these were elected, as in if they got the other members of the minority side to put forward names, then he presumes that you have the support of some significant number of his own NDC colleagues. But as I've been told, they are questioning whether that process was followed. So I don't know how much authority and legitimacy he will carry if indeed it was a party selection. And if it didn't come from his own ranks, I don't know that. But I don't question his competence at all and his ability to, I mean, what are you there to do? To whip your parties, your members in line to oppose government policies and programs in parliament you believe is inimical to your constituent. That's primarily is going to be what he's going to do. And to do that, you must earn the respect of your colleagues. Question is, does he earn that respect when, as the minority spokesperson of transport, which is what he is currently, has he earned that respect? Look, I don't know. But if you isolate him as an individual and look at his qualities, he has the qualities to sort of move that.
He has what it takes. And I want to come back to the minority leadership. You want to juxtapose Atoforsen and Amako Feboa versus Oseche Mensah-Bonsu and Afenyo Markins. You know, Haruna has some radicalism, and sometimes you need that for the work that he does. These two people, even though they do their work. I mean, Ato Forson has been a firebrand. If you talk about his finance committee, he's been spokesperson for the minority. He's been very loud over there. But I doubt if he has that radicalism. I see him to be a calm person. And same with Ama Kofi Boah. If you have these two calm people facing somebody like Osechi Mensah-Bonsu and his deputy Afenyo Markins, how's it going to be like?
I mean, so you have to take both positions and see how they complement each other. So you have Ama Kofi Boah, who is a firebrand, by the way. I remember,
definitely.
When longest serving energy minister we've had, maneuvered and survived Mills and John Mahama kept his position. And anybody you speak to tell you that he is a force to be reckoned with in the party. Right, and he has a lot of resources at play too that he can bring to bear, and it's interesting that he is the man who's going to deputize Ato Forson. But I guess Ato Forson has been chosen on merit also because of the work I said that he's done, but also because of where the country is currently. Okay, right. Mm-hmm. In the next 2 years, the defining factor will be the economy. Yep. Right, the defining factor.
Definitely.
Yesterday with Haruna Drisu, 90% of the conversation was around economy, right? And he held his own perfectly. Yep. He held his own perfectly. I mean, but the party made me thinking, you need somebody with a finance background. He's now holding a doctorate degree. He's been a deputy finance minister before. I don't know what the considerations were, but sitting here and not knowing the inside story, you can't just assume that because of the next 2 years, that is going to be key. And the debates on the floor now, mostly will be centered around issues around the economy. Okay. So you want somebody with gravitas in there, in that particular aspect of things, who can put up a strong case for the NDC side. And maybe they think he's a man to do it. Okay. You talk about the firebrand and radicalism. Of course, I think the two of them don't have the same radicalism of Muntaka Mubarak, because we saw that when the vote came down, push comes to shove, he was ready to defend the ballot with his life. Definitely. I mean, somebody took the ballot, he chased them, So, I mean, I honestly don't see Ato Forson in that mold. The whips, Agboja can't do that. Okay. I mean, I see Agboja in that frame too.
Ahmed can do that.
And of course, can do that as well. I mean, so yeah, I mean, look, it's the NDC. This is their choice. The question is, first of all, how the minority members, the general 137, how they react to this. Yeah. Secondly, how their own base, how their own grassroots folks react to this.
And Evans, before you go, let's look at the regional balance, because I know in all of this, they consider regional balance, who takes what position, because there are voters out there who you want to always reckon with you and follow your decisions. Now, you're taking Muntaka out of the space. You're taking Haruna out. That means that, and I do not see any representation from the north when you talk about the front line.
But you have Ahmed Ibrahim, right?
Ahmed Ibrahim is deputy whip. But if you come to the minority position, you are now putting Ato Forson, who is from the central region, deputized by Western region, Ama Kofi Boah. You are now taking voter region out. Of course, there's a compensation.
You have two voter
There's a compensation for the chief whip, Agboja, who is taking chief whip.
So here's the thing.
So that's a compensation.
I actually think if you look at the regional balance question, the party is choosing this very carefully, because in the previous manifestation of the leadership, there were two individuals from the voter region. Yeah. You had James Kluti Aveji, and you have Comfort Doyo Ganza.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Or is it Comfort seem to be in, I mean, I think
she's in Adan.
It's Adan. Okay.
Yep.
So we have just one person, and the same, really. It's been, at least she's been maintained. Right? So again, they are keeping faith with the voter region.
With the voter.
In that.
Yes.
But you have the central region, which is important because it's one of those battleground, regions, and the swing region as well. So I see why that is important, right? Because you have Ato Forson coming from there, but then you have the Western region, which is another swing region.
Ahmed is actually not from the Northern region.
In terms of the constituency that he wills, though.
Yes, and you want to talk about the northern region that has become not solely for the NDC now, because the NPP is also making a lot of inroads in the northern region. Is this a good decision?
No, I mean, if you look at Ahmed, he may not be from the northern region, but from the general concept of the geographic location called the North.
Yeah,
he's from there, right? And so you could easily say, well, they're making that consideration that he would sort of appeal to generally from the people of northern extraction.
Right. This is something that has just come up, and just as Evans talks about, we'll get to hear the details as the days go by. It's a conversation that has started. We'll have more in our subsequent bulletins. Let's take a break on Joy News today. We'll bring you business.
Hello, welcome to the business segment on Joy News today with me, Pius Kojobaka. Now, government has made what it describes as a significant progress with domestic debt exchange program to encouraging banks to fully participate in the program. This is because the Association of Banks has agreed to sign the deal subject to the proposed terms. There is more in the following reports.
Proposals that have been put on the table that will result in the commercial banks participating in this deal includes government agreeing to offer 5% as coupon payment for 2023. Government has also agreed that it will offer 9% coupon payment on the 12 new bonds that will be issued by the Finance Ministry. Another significant move that has been proposed by the state will eventually result in the commercial banks participating in the deal is that government has agreed to remove all clauses in the exchange memorandum that empowers the Republic to vary the terms in the exchange program in the future. The Ghana Association of Bankers was, however, quick to add that the agreement that it will reach with government is, however, subject to the approval of individual bank shareholders and their board of directors. Or for some, since the commercial banks were the main reason for the extension of the domestic debt exchange program, government can be said to have made some significant progress in getting a very important stakeholder in participating in this domestic debt exchange program.
Now, the Association of Ghana Industries has described the level of utility tariff increments for water and electricity by the Public Utilities and Regulatory Commission as too high for industry to bear, particularly at this time. It argues that though utility companies need to recover costs to sustain the operations, the effect of the utility tariff increase could be dire for both industry and the companies. There is more in this report.
Within a period of less than 6 months, electricity tariffs have shot up significantly on two occasions, 26.6% in September 2022 and 29.9% for this quarter, totaling 56.5%. According to AGI, industries have been under pressure from an unstable business environment coupled with so much uncertainty since last year. Whilst hoping to see signs of recovery this year, it said the situation is further worsened by the level of increment of utility tariffs, which poses a serious threat to employment prospects and the survival of businesses. It therefore urged the government to ensure efficient utility infrastructure and logistics management to also save costs in these difficult times. Again, it expects government to control macroeconomic instability, a major trigger and driver for such sudden changes in tariff levels and price hikes.
And that's it for business for now. I will be back at 1 p.m. with the marketplace. Sports is next.